Like I mentioned at the beginning, we're the national agency as well. So we're the eTwinning NSS, and we're the national agency covering for the KA1 and KA2 projects. Can I ask you first at the beginning, how many of you have participated, actually, your institutions in these projects? Have you gone to any mobilities? Can I just see your hands? Like, oh, wow, okay. Okay, another question now. How many of you have written these projects? So how many of you were authors? So that's less, okay, but we still have a considerable number. Okay, so for some of you, this may be repetitive, so bear with us for a little bit. Nevertheless, I think it's a useful info to remind yourself, and it's a useful info to have in this group of people that is, like I said, the most motivated one. So everything that you can do on eTwinning and make an introduction to this KA1 or KA2 project, you can do in person through these projects. So our goal here today is to actually, not today, but in these 3 days, is to make you connect with each other, not only for eTwinning, but possibly for these projects as well. So what is Erasmus program? This would be the European Union program which provides support in these 3 areas, and this is education and training, youth and sport. We're here today for education and training, and as you know, as schools, you can participate in this kinds of projects. I see you taking pictures, so I will just remain on this slide, although I have not much else to tell you. So the role of these projects is to increase and improve cooperation between institutions through the exchange of good practices and knowledge. This is something that, as experienced eTwinners, you're already doing on daily basis. But like I said, this can be a completely new dimension in the sense that you can have personal contact with the colleagues that you've been cooperating on eTwinning for years. But like we all know, it's the matter of funds, and this is what these projects carry with them, unlike eTwinning projects. Can I just have this, because I see nothing, as you may see with my glasses. So the goal of them is to increase the learning outcomes. It's to support the professional development of you as teachers. Of course, foreign language competence, cultural exchange, raising awareness, and so on. It's a byproduct of these projects as it is. However, we encourage you to focus on some concrete goals, like improving methodology, seeing something completely new that your colleagues are doing in their classes that you otherwise wouldn't know how to do. So to increase your knowledge by exchanging these practices. So who can apply? Preschools, schools, high schools, vocational schools. Do we have any vocational schools here with us? Do we have anyone from? Okay, this is what I presume. Oh, we have one, okay, a single one. Okay, so both elementary and vocational, okay. So in these projects, you will probably focus on KA1 at first. A number of organizations, you need at least 2. So you have one that is sending their teachers and one that is a receiving institution. Who can you cooperate with? We have here today, I think everyone besides one country, I think, is a program country, and Serbia just became one last year. So this is all fairly new for us, so if some of you are more experienced than your Serbian colleagues, please do share your experiences with them during these informal evenings that we will have together. So we have 28 EU member countries, and these 6, it used to be 5, and now Serbia is among them as well. So as motivated as you are as individuals, you cannot apply yourselves for these projects. You need your entire institution behind you. So this is sometimes a blessing and sometimes a curse, because your institution might be willing to participate, but then sometimes it's an obstacle as well. You need to motivate your colleagues. You need to be the driving force for everybody else, and your principal and your, all your other colleagues that need to be included. So sometimes you have this supportive environment, and we hope that this is the case for most of you. As teachers, so we only have teachers here today, but also you can, when I said you need to motivate them, you can motivate them by promising them that they will be able to participate and increase their knowledge as well. So you can have principals, pedagogues, psychologists as well. Fortunately or unfortunately, in KA1 projects, only vet schools can have pupils. We'll see how the new program will look like and how this will go about. We have some hints that you will be able to have students in KA1 projects in the new program, but for now and for this next call, so it's only you, the teachers. You can be two things. You can be a coordinator or a partner. So as a coordinator, you are going to mobility, so you are applying to your national agency. So Serbian participants here today, you're applying to us. Everybody else, you're applying to your national agencies. And then you are the one going to a mobility, learning something new, seeing good practices of your colleagues. Or you're a partner, which means you have a good practice that you can offer and you are hosting your colleagues. So this can be a great continuation of your eTwinning endeavors in the future. So we use these terms KA1, KA2, mobility, but sometimes they're quite bureaucratic and they're very Brussels-made, and we work with it every day. So people often ask us when they hear about this for the first time, which is not the case for most of you, but what can we actually do on this mobility? What is the task? What can we do? So you can do job shadowing, you can do teaching and training courses. Which means that there are no Erasmus Plus courses. You can choose any course that you find useful. So you can find anything. But what we always say is be careful with these courses. Choose something that your colleagues have recommended. Choose something that happens every year and there's no doubt that it will happen, because sometimes they get canceled, sometimes they're not good enough. So there's no approval. We just need your motivation, but it's up to you how it will go about. So ask your colleagues. This is a good chance to have such a variety of people who have participated. Maybe somebody went to something else and you can learn that it was a really good course. As for the job shadowing, I'm sure there's a lot of potential here as well. You all have different practices. We've only heard about 2 examples here, well, actually 1 example in cooperation, but I'm sure all of you have amazing things that you can share with your colleagues, and maybe it would be better for somebody to actually job shadow you and be there with you in the classroom and see how you're doing certain things, especially if it's very interactive, especially if it's something that would be useful to see in person. Vocational schools, we'll skip it. Our 1 colleague will forgive us. But it's pretty similar. So how long do these projects last? It's between 12 and 24 months, and the mobility itself is between 2 days and 2 months. What does this mean? A project is a lot bigger than this one mobility. This is why eTwinning is important. You can prepare for your mobility. You can later on do the dissemination through eTwinning. You can include other schools that were not in this project, but you share your knowledge, for example, nationally. So not many schools can win these projects. Last year, I think, actually this year, they're just starting. We've only had 25 schools, get these projects in Serbia. We had many more applications. We had over 100. So this is a good opportunity for all of those who have not succeeded in each of your countries, because I'm sure there's a lot more, that you can share your experiences with them through eTwinning. And then for pupils, it's for vet. So what is actually covered? The idea of these projects is for you not to use your own means. So the project is there to actually cover everything, all of your expenses, from travel costs to individual support, which means the hotel you will be staying in, the meals and everything else that you might need during the day. And then you have organizational support. This is also one important line because it can provide, especially your language teachers, so maybe it's not useful for you, but if you're going to a country where you want to have, let's say, you want to go up to B1 level of knowing a language, you're going to, I don't know, Estonia, and you already have some knowledge, but you want to perfection before you go to this mobility, this is what organizational support is for. So you can go to a language course, you can prepare for a cultural exchange in some different way. So there's a lot of opportunities that you can do with this, and of course it's for dissemination. So later on when you come back, you want to tell your colleagues, you want to have a little round table or something, you go to a smaller rural school that doesn't have that many opportunities and tell them about your experiences. So this is one way to do it. Okay, we have ICT here live. And of course, course fees, if you choose to do a course fee is covered in a certain special needs support, of course. These criteria, I'm not going to go into too many details, but it's important to have them in mind when you're applying and when you're thinking about a project. It's very similar to an eTwinning project. If you are experienced there, you will be experienced here. The logic is the same. It's not anything more complicated, it's just more writing. It's just when you see a form, it seems more complicated, but it really is, the core is very, very similar. So what you need to explain is relevance. Relevance for you, relevance for your organization, your colleagues, your pupils. This is all very logical. The only thing that you might have new compared to eTwinning project is this institutional part, organizational part. So you need to explain how this will be useful, what you will learn, how this will be useful for your entire institution, how you will disseminate this knowledge to your colleagues who didn't have a chance to go to a mobility. Quality and implementation, how do you plan it? Did you think of all of the details? Logistics. This is something, again, that maybe in eTwinning it's not, its core is there, but it's not in the sense of, you know, planning, who will pick you up, when will you arrive there, to just book, but it's something that is really actually quite easy to do if you've ever planned anything like your vacation. It shouldn't be more complicated than that. And then impact and dissemination. This is something that's extremely important in all of the European projects. It's not only about you, it's about how you will share it with others. So who are you influencing? Are your colleagues aware of the benefits of these projects? Pupils, your community. So some projects might have wider scope, so it's not only methodology in class, but it's, let's say, inclusion of parents in the decision-making process or in learning itself. So maybe you can influence your entire community with these projects. Inclusion as well, much wider than just the school level. So if you can have this, it will make your project much more significant. So I just want to give two quick examples. The first example is a VET example. So they had student mobility as well, which is not the case for most of you. But still, it's a nice example to see. So we have this school, maritime school, that was visiting another one in Croatia. And they had 10 pupils and 2 teachers go for this traineeship. This is an actual picture from their mobility, so I thought it was lovely. And their budget, you can see the budget, it's around 17,000 euros. So it's quite a sum to coordinate. If you've never done it before, maybe you want to start small and you want to start with just a couple of mobilities. So this organizational part, this middle part that I mentioned, the logistics can be a little bit easier. But if you're more experienced, this is not something you should be scared of. If you've had one project, the next project can be much larger because then you see all the elements and it's not that complicated. And the second one is maybe something that is a bit more close to you. So it's internationalization of the school through innovative methods and greater use of ICT in teaching. Quite easy. It's we took our examples. So we took Serbian examples. It's Nada Popovic from Kruševac, and it's a job shadowing, 8 participants. They went to 2 schools in Czechia and an institute in Italy. So the budget is similar. So it's 8 mobilities. This is approximately how much it's valued. I don't know how much time I have. I don't have any more time. So through strategic partnerships, I will just run through them. Those are projects that are, let's say, more complicated. You need an intellectual output. So if you have the ability, which I'm sure you have, to create something that you've always been missing in your classes, this is what you can do with your colleagues from different countries. For these projects, though, you need experience. So you need experience not in projects, but in the topic that you will be dealing with. So if you're writing, let's say, help me out. If you are creating a new course, or if you're creating a new platform that will be useful for you in your classes, you need to have this knowledge, not about making a platform, but about the content that you will be putting on it. So this is the main difference between strategic partnerships and KA1. KA1, you can just go and see. In strategic partnership, you need a certain experience in the topic. You can also share experiences, and there are these 2 to 9 projects that I'm sure you're familiar with. You need eTwinning for them, and you can exchange good practices through these projects. So this is maybe something that can be most valuable to you, because this is where eTwinning kicks in the most. So I'll just run through these. You need at least 3 organizations, so they're quite bigger, and they last between a year and 3 years. Okay, it's more focused on project management, variety of activities. It's funding this intellectual. So you don't have payments in KA1. It's imagined so that you don't have your own costs, but you're just going to a mobility. Here, if you're creating something, if you're sitting, writing a certain thing, you get paid for this. So this is the difference between these projects as well. It's a larger budget, but you need clearly defined goals, and you need outputs, dissemination strategies, and so on. So it's more complex, but I'm sure if you've had an experience that you are able to do it. What's covered, like I said, the only difference is project management and implementation. You have transnational project meetings where you plan all of these activities. Learning, teaching, and training activities are like tiny KA1 projects within KA2. So you're going 2 mobilities within these activities, and you have intellectual outputs, like I mentioned. Multiplier events are conferences. When you are done with your intellectual output, you need somewhere to talk about it, right? So you gather all of the relevant stakeholders, and you have a conference, so this is funded as well. How to find partners. This is something that should be fairly easy for you. You have School Education Gateway. It's mostly for the courses. eTwinning. This event is for finding the partners for these projects as well. And you have Erasmus Plus project results platform. So if what I just said in these 15 minutes is not enough for you to understand how these projects work, or to get new ideas, even if you've had them before, you go to this platform. You can find all the projects that were funded in the previous years by topic, by KA1 or KA2, by countries. They have a really good filtering system, so you can contact somebody from there and tell them, oh, we saw your project on this platform. We want to learn from you, depending on the topic. So this is a huge recommendation to go there. You don't need to be registered. You just find it. Yes, this event. So I'll not go through K2 examples, but if you have any questions, okay, we can talk about it later as well. We'll be at the dinner. So if you have any questions, we are the advisor. Yes, please. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Like I said, yes. School partnerships. This is what I mentioned, 229. I'm sorry, I'm talking in these codes because it's easier for us. It used to be called school to school. Now there are school partnerships. And this is exactly where eTwinning kicks in. This is what I mentioned before. So they're more simple than the ones that require intellectual output, and you need eTwinning for them because they have mixed mobilities as well. You can have your students go with you, and this is something you can't have in KA1. And we had a really good this was the first year for us that we had 229, and we were quite confused about how it's going to go about, if we'll have enough schools who applied. We had more than enough. We were only able to fund 6, but we already have 30 partners from other countries. So this event and your experience is maybe most fitted in KA1 and KA229, so school partnerships. You can ask me or Marica or Ivana more later on about these, about the available budget, about the partners that you can have. Feel welcome. We're also project advisors, so we're not just doing eTwinning, we also do projects. So any of us, you can ask us anything.